Welcome to the Corporate Venturing Insider Series, where I interview top practitioners in the CVC world and learn with you the best practices and golden nuggets that they have accumulated over their career. In this episode, we would be learning from Sonita Lontoh, a member of the board directors at Sunrun and True Blue Inc. Sonita, welcome.
Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I always start with a question about how did you get involved with corporate venturing? Today, we are going to talk about the two big part of your career, but I just want to get a sense for the first part before we even move to the second part.
Great question. First of all, thank you so much again for having me here today. I would say I got into corporate venture, or let's just use the bigger umbrella under innovation, because I would say when I look back at my career in the past 25 years, it had really been at the intersection of new technology or innovation. And I've always been involved with companies where innovation is such an integral part to what they do. And many of the companies that I've been involved with, Nicholas, they are, kind of companies that have evolved over a long period of time, let's say 200 years, 80 years. And as you can imagine, for companies to survive that long, they always have to innovate. And in that particular sense, I've always been involved with their new businesses. But sometimes doing new businesses internally in a company is not enough. And companies always want to see what else is out there, keep their fingers on the pulse to know what other innovations are going on. And that's how I got involved with corporate venturing as well.
Well, let's talk about which companies, because you hinted 200 years and 80 years.
Sure. Perfect. Yeah, so with Siemens, interestingly, before I joined Siemens, I was actually with a venture-backed company called Trillion. It was involved in applications of smart grid and smart cities and infrastructure. And then one day I had the opportunity to actually join Siemens, but in particular to actually help launch a new smart energy business, which again is the applications of communications and digital technologies to help customers such as energy companies or utilities or factories to leverage the Siemens digital technologies to improve operational efficiencies internally. Second, to be able to help provide superior customer experience for their customers. And last but not least, to experiment, like you say, with new business models, usually service-oriented business model. So during my time there at Siemens, I got involved with the Siemens Corporate Venture Group, which I think today is actually called Next 47. In addition to having this new business within Siemens, also wanted to see what other innovative companies out there that we might be able to either invest or help as a portfolio company to grow that had technology that are adjacent or complementary to what we were trying to do. Because that's really how I got involved into new business plus corporate venturing during my time at Siemens.
And if I remember, you worked for a utility company before.
That's true. That is true.
So how helpful was it for you to have been on the other side and then work with Siemens on all these innovations, new applications?
Yeah, actually extremely helpful, Nicholas, because PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric Company, who's actually the largest utility in California, is the type of customers that Siemens have for this new business.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, smart grid, I would say, is really the applications of communications and digital technology connect the whole energy value chain. So from generation to transmission to distribution to distributed energy. Distributed energy just means solar in people's rooftop, batteries in people's homes or buildings. The vision is everything will be connected. If in the old days, the old paradigm, energy is being generated at the centralized generation plant that is usually in a faraway place and then brought into where the demands are. The new paradigm is energy will be two-way communication between the supply and the demand so that you can have a system that is more efficient.
Yes.
I'm sharing that with you because actually in the case of PG&E, it was a vertically integrated utility that's from generation all the way to distribution to the end consumers. But that perspective was very helpful to me because as someone at Siemens who was trying to help customers such as PG&E embrace, let's just say, technology in order to enable this new energy paradigm, understanding the challenges and opportunity that a customer face is extremely helpful. I think it's very important for any solution provider to be customer oriented. but sometimes they focus more on their technology. But I think if they understand the customer's pain points, it will be very helpful to be able to marry what it is that they're offering to what kind of benefit that the customers can get.
Absolutely. And a lot of that is technology-based too.
Correct.
You haven't talked about your educational background, but it's quite technical to start.
Yes. Interestingly, I got both my undergraduate degree and master's in engineering. I also got my MBA. But what's interesting, Nicholas, I have never actually been an engineer in any of my career.
Okay.
My career had always been helping engineers who invent something new, apply that in a customer situation. My background, I think, in engineering helped me to understand and help engineers to translate whatever it is that they're inventing, and they're all brilliant. They're inventing something great. But sometimes in order to really commercialize it and in order to really make it resonate, the customers, I think, need a different skill set. And I think I have that ability to do that because my educational background was a combination of engineering and business. Yeah.
Now that we understand your engineering background,
Yeah.
education, your utility background with PG&E, but also the supplier side with Siemens, how much of these three elements together help to identify the right application, the right innovation, and more importantly, which ones would not work?
Oh, wow. Oh, sure. So a lot of, let's just use energy customers, for instance. The energy customers are undergoing a digital transformation journey, and everyone is at different stages of maturity with regards to where they are on the journey. And I would say my educational background and the understanding of technology and business, I think really helped in identifying some of the use cases throughout that journey. So I would say the easiest use cases usually has something to do with improving efficiency. It's very important to be able to show ROI quickly. And so let's focus on use cases that are easy to test, easy to implement quickly and get like a quick return on investment. And in the energy infrastructure, usually that has something to do with improving efficiency, let's say in the distribution. So that is one application of smart grid. Because immediately once you do that, you improve reliability, which is extremely important for utilities, reliability of their system. And that is the first that what you do, right? And then usually from that journey, you move a little bit towards the second journey, which is usually improving customer experience. So the applications of a lot of this digital and industrial IoT technology in the energy infrastructure would enable the utility to know, let's say, if there is an outage at this particular customer. Because before that, they were blind. Before they applied this digital technology and sensors, they actually didn't know that. Sometimes they have to go manually check where it is. But with this new technology, they will know immediately and they can send the repair in the right place even before the customer calls. It's a big deal, right? In order to improve customer experience. But usually you don't want to just there. And to be honest with you, I think a lot of energy companies and utilities, especially with the advent of more distributed energy, which means more solar on the consumer side, more batteries on the consumer side, more electric vehicles on the consumer side, a lot of utilities are thinking of what new business models can they enter that enables this integration of these new, let's call it distributed energy resources onto the grid.
So can you talk about maybe something you're proud of your time at Siemens in corporate venturing perspective?
I'm always proud of when whatever we do have a bigger impact, when you really feel that you're really delivering real value. When some of our projects, we work with a utility customer to enable a microgrid actually at Indian Reservation in California. And we enabled that community to actually be energy independent. They were far from the grid, so they do need their own energy source. And I would say it really helped with the economic development for that community. So I would say I was very proud of that project, even though it's a small project, it's a microgrid.
Very nice. And created a new segment in a way for the microgrid, which otherwise would probably have been seen as uneconomical.
Yes, exactly. Uneconomical.
I want to move to the next stage, which was HP, where you were the CMO.
Mhm.
And I'm sure what you've learned at Siemens was useful also in HP. So maybe
Yes.
we can start with that. What it is that you learned at Siemens that you applied at HP?
Just to take a step back a little bit, when I was at HP, Nicholas, I was really focused on their new businesses.
Mm.
So actually my first, let's just say, project when I was at HP was to help launch their new 3D printing business, which is still leveraging HP core property of microfluidics. It's just being applied to be able to enable 3D printing technology. Leveraging the core IP of 3D printing, but where HP could be a player in maybe more of the value chain instead of just selling the solution to someone else. And so during my time there, actually, I helped them to launch 2 new businesses. The first one is called Arise, which is a personalized orthotics, because actually we found out that the orthotics industry was very fragmented. And there is a new way, a better way of providing personalized orthotics for customers through your feed, uploading your data, and then for HP to make the orthotics for you and sending it to you within a week. And we launched that with the new paper packaging. Believe it or not, 3D printing technology is actually a very good fit to make paper bottles. And we saw that there is a macro trend in the world to actually be moving more towards sustainable packaging. And so we launched a new business called Choose Packaging. Again, we tried not to push the HP forward because, again, it's not an industry where HP is well known for, but Choose Packaging is owned by HP, where we make paper bottles, sustainable packaging. Those are just some examples of, I would say, corporate innovation. Yeah.
In this podcast, I always ask the journey into corporate venturing.
Yeah.
We described your success in corporate venturing, but then it's leading to the second stage of your career. Do you want maybe to share about why you decided on the second stage of portfolio life in a way and the impact you had?
Great question. First of all, just full disclosure. So I joined 2 of my public boards while still a sitting executive at HP. And so I'm very grateful for that because I think most companies only let the executive sit on 1 public board, not 2. Very grateful HP let me do that. So thank you, HP. But I think when I started joining my public boards while still sitting executive, it provided me with a very good perspective in a sense that governance is very different from operating. And I would say as an operator, we all have been successful because we achieved something. We grew something. We led. We transformed. But in a board role, especially for public companies, that's no longer your role. So instead of leading, managing, transforming, growing, actually what you need to do is leverage your experience, operating experience, and be able to convert that into insight and foresight, helping the company see around the corner by asking questions, giving advice. Hopefully they will take it, but it's up to them whether they want to take it or not, and really help mentor and guide the CEO or the management team to navigate material risks and opportunities for long-term value creation for shareholders. So for me, that was really the biggest difference in my day job. I'm growing. Then in my board role, I no longer do that, but I leverage whatever it is that I have had in the past 25 years to help the companies in a way. And then as to how I decided to just go full-time with this, I felt like I'm at the stage in my life where, let's just say I want to explore other things, Nicholas. People actually do call this portfolio life because you're not retired. You still do a lot of things. And actually, my portfolio life, I serve on 2 public boards, 1 private board, and also as an advisor to a VC firm because I want to stay abreast with what's going on.
And maybe I will ask a very tactical question, but
Okay.
do you see a difference between you being a board member of a private company and a public company?
Yeah. Very good. I think in the private company, of course, it depends on who it is, what they are. I think you're much more hands-on because at the end of the day, I think most private companies look to their board members for specific, depending on what it is you're particular expertise, they look for you to really help them on that. Public companies, a lot of it is about governance, good governance. If you're listed in the United States, the SEC is prominent. So everything you do, you have to make sure that it complies with SEC regulation. You have a lot more scrutiny. Private company, your CEO compensation is not going to be challenged or scrutinized by anyone. Public companies, yes, they look at the proxy, they see how you're compensating your CEO and your named executive officers. People can start doing analysis with regards to what is your total shareholder return the past 5 years, comparing that to your peers. Benchmark, like how are you compensating your CEO or executives? I would say public companies are a lot more about governance. Private companies, I think, is a lot more about helping them grow.
And maybe you can share, but being on board of startups that are growing is a really good path, probably, to become board member of public companies. It gives some of the skill set, even though it's very different.
I would say at the end of the day, any board, private or public, they actually want a well-rounded business leader as a board member who is not only good in a particular domain, but also someone who understands the bigger business context, including strategy, including talent, including financing or financials, being able to see material risk and opportunities, again, for long-term value creation. And so I would say if your aspiration is to be a public board member, you should also add like some of these other things that public boards need to do, such as understanding audit committees, because at the end of the day, your financial statement, the integrity of your financial statements, very important for public company. So you should expose yourself to other things other than helping the company to raise money and grow.
And in your case, I know for Sunrun, you're on both the audit and the compensation committee.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit? And I think it's useful for the audience.
Yeah.
What are the responsibility for each, which sounds obvious, but it's not that obvious.
It is not obvious, yes. So for the audit committee, the core responsibility of audit committees are ensuring the integrity and accuracy of the financial reporting and controls, which eventually result to the financial statements that people see. And then the audit committee is also responsible to oversee both the internal auditors and the external auditors. Because I think every public company usually has an external auditor provide a third-party attestation of the integrity of their financial statement. A lot of audit committees are also responsible for compliance with ethics and regulations. More and more audit committees are also responsible for the enterprise risk management. Any reporting audit committee, which there are pros and cons with that, Nicholas, to be honest with you, because sometimes the audit committee is so overworked. Yeah. Everything is in the audit committee.
Everything is added to them.
Everything is added to them. Compensation committee, you're responsible to oversee the compensation philosophy and programs for your CEO and named executive officer, which is basically Section 16 officer. There, what you want to do is to ensure that your compensation plan is actually related to performance. That sounds obvious, but there is art and science there, ensure that compensation is actually tied to performance and also tied to core values and culture of the company that you want to push. And I think a lot of boards also have their human capital management oversight in the compensation committee.
Yeah, and when you say performance, the challenge is the short-term performance and the long-term performance, and not creating incentives where you disconnect the shareholder value creation. So you have some experience. I'm not asking anything that you cannot share, but maybe best practices for a compensation committee member.
I think best practices is always to make sure that the largest majority of the executive compensation is tied to performance. And what I meant by Nicholas is instead of like most of the compensation will come from performance-based shares, which is, I think, good in general. And then the other good practice is don't use the same method for the short plan and the long-term plan. Preferably you use different types of metrics. And then the other, I would say, best practice is, look at your peers. And in general, you don't want to be too extreme, like either ways. You don't want to be too low. You don't want to be too high.
Yeah.
I think somewhere in the median makes sense, because that's a reflection of what is actually the market value.
It sounds, if I'm pushing to the limit, it sounds like then you basically look at the benchmark and try to be in the median.
Or a little bit above the median. If you think you have a very good executives team, you want to be a little bit above the median, but not like crazy.
Now, part of the performance and the compensation sometimes is linked to ESG. And there was a very nice trends about ESG being more and more included in compensation and goals of the company. Now there's a pushback. Shareholders saying, wait, do we really need this? And what's your reaction to that? And maybe how should we think about it?
Sure. Good question. I think, unfortunately, the term ESG, I think, has become a little bit negative because the truth is it's confusing. ESG is environmental, social, and governance. Those are very different, right? It could be diversity, equity, inclusion. It could be GHG emission reduction. It could be safety. I'm not kidding you. It could be safety. It could be like having a board structure, shareholder values, which usually means like your board needs to be elected every year instead of having a staggered election. It could mean many things. So people are like, what the hell? So I think the first thing that companies need to do is to make sure they understand what are important for their stakeholders. So go out there, talk to your largest shareholders, talk to your customers, talk to your employees, talk to the communities, see what are all the different ESG factors that are important for them. But that's not enough. After you take all of them, there'll be a lot. You need to do an assessment with regards to the relevance and the significance of these different factors for your particular business. There can be many things out there, but not everything will be material for you. So focus on those ESG factors that are the most material for you. Okay? And then second, ensure that those ESG factors are actually integrated into your company's strategy. A lot of companies, Nicholas, unfortunately, they're like, oh, what's our ESG strategy? Oh, okay. It's like, it's its own thing. No. ESG strategy has to be integrated into your company's business strategy to manage material risk and opportunities for long-term value creation. And then ensure that you do, it's an emerging practice, to be honest with you, it's not for everyone. But I would say they said about 70% of the S&P 500 actually link some kind of ESG metrics to executive compensation. The ESG metrics usually the link the most to executive compensation are, first is GHG reduction goal. Second metric is DE&I type of metrics. The third metric is actually supply chain and safety. And so I would say that's good practice. Sometimes you have to do it in different ways. There are pros and cons in how you do it. Do you only put it in the short-term compensation? Do you also put it in the long-term compensation? Do you use a modifier to be able to adjust your compensation up or down, depending on whether the company achieved the goals, right? Or do you want it to be a weighted metric, individual for the individual? Or do you use it as a part of a scorecard that is part of the company's overall strategic and operational metric? There are many ways of doing that. There are many pros and cons. But I would say with all these pushbacks, again, you have to look at what is actually material for you. And just focus on those things that are the most material. And don't worry about the noise.
Wow. I learned a lot today from you.
Oh, thank you.
I really want to thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate your journey. And I can see how your impact has grown very quickly, even in Siemens and HP, where you really have tangible applications. But now you are on the board of very successful company. One we didn't even talk, maybe we should talk for 2 minutes, which is Sunrun, which is very important for our planet. So maybe you can share a little bit about this purpose. You talked about purpose.
Yeah, actually Sunrun is a very purpose-driven company. So Sunrun, just a little bit of a context. It's actually started by, I think, 2 Stanford students in 2006, 2007 timeframe. And the innovation of Sunrun, Nicholas, is actually not exactly on the technology per se, even though today we're building the technology as well, but it was in the business model.
Yes.
So it was actually solar and battery as a service,
Yep.
which truly enabled consumers. So these are people like you and me, these are corporations who wanted to have solar and battery at home to not have to pay for the whole thing in the beginning. Sunrun offered a subscription, let's just call it subscription, where people pay a monthly fee that we believe is less than your utility bills usually, that enable you to have the clean energy that today had also been able to provide more resilience as there are more outages and all
So
that.
many more.
So many more outages. So the solar battery really help people at home to be able to have more resilient energy. Today, the offering is solar and battery as a service, but in the future, we want to offer other things, really enable consumers to have a comfortable, clean, affordable home that is powered by a lot of these, let's just call it smart devices, and energy comes from clean sources.
Thank you, Sarita. It's always a pleasure talking with you,
thank
and
you.
I have no doubt you have inspired many today in the audience. So
Hopefully.
thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you.